Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. This week has been rather eventful when it comes to West Asia with the fall of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. But we turn to a figure who has emerged as both a leader and a lightning rod in the chaos of the Syrian civil war. Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, a name synonymous with ambition, strategy and controversy. From his beginnings in militancy to leading one of the most powerful rebel groups in Syria, his rise offers a lens into the complexities of a conflict that has reshaped the region. Here's the story of the man steering Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and his pivotal role in Syria's future. Take a look.
In the chaos of the Syrian civil war, one name stands out: Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. Known as the commander of the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or HTS, al-Jolani has risen as a powerful and controversial figure, influencing Syria's rebel movement against Bashar al-Assad's regime. Al-Jolani was born Ahmad Hussein al-Shara in 1982 in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. His journey into militancy began young. His family comes from the Golan Heights, but he spent his childhood in Damascus. Inspired by the Second Intifada in Palestine and the Iraq War, he joined Al-Qaeda in Iraq and met key extremist figures including Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi during his imprisonment at Camp Bucca. In 2011, as the Syrian uprising took hold, al-Jolani returned to Syria to establish Jabhat al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda's Syrian branch. However, his ambition soon outgrew the confines of international jihad. In 2016, al-Jolani split from Al-Qaeda, rebranding his group as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or HTS. This shift marked an effort to present HTS as a Syrian-focused entity, rather than a global extremist organization. Under al-Jolani, HTS has become the dominant rebel force in Idlib province. The group governs through the Syrian Salvation Government, offering public services but drawing criticism for its authoritarian practices. Al-Jolani has redefined his public image, trading traditional jihadist attire for suits and blazers in a bid for legitimacy. He claims a clear objective: to overthrow Assad and establish governance under his interpretation of Islamic law. However, he's expressed interest in aligning with international powers against Iranian influence in Syria, signaling a pragmatic side to his leadership. Al-Jolani's rise and strategies embody the complexities of the Syrian conflict. His ability to balance military might, political maneuvering, and public rebranding has kept HTS central to Syria's future. But with ongoing humanitarian crises and shifting alliances, the path forward remains uncertain. Abu Muhammad al-Jolani's story reflects the turbulent nature of Syria's civil war, a tale of ambition, strategy, and the pursuit of power amidst chaos. His influence continues to shape the region, making him a figure the world cannot ignore. Bureau Report, India Today, Global.
Bashar al-Assad's family ruled Syria with a strong fist for almost half a decade. Backed by Russia and having escaped several coups before the sudden fall, Assad and his family have now taken political asylum in Russia. Now, Syria's fate is left in the hands of external forces like Russia, Turkey, Israel, and the United States of America. So what happens now? Who takes control of Syria? And what happens to the displaced Syrians and the refugees who are returning to their homes with the hope that a new future awaits them? My colleague Mahashweta Lala has come out with this report.
The fall of Bashar al-Assad, an Alawite Shiite by the rebel coalition and the Syrian National Army led by Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, has altered the dynamics of the 13-year civil war in Syria. But what happens to the two major key players, Russia and Turkey, who had also played a role in Libya? In Libya, powers like Turkey had sent in troops and drones to the United Nations recognized government of National Accord based in Tripoli, while Russia had backed Haftar's Libyan National Army. Whereas Libya's strategic importance is its largest oil reserves in Africa and it is located along the Mediterranean coast, Syria houses strategic military bases of Russia, the naval facility at Tartus, and the Khmeimim Air Base. This not only allows Russia to assert itself in the Middle East, but also serves as the logistics hub to support Russian operations in North Africa, including its military contractors in Libya and the Sahel. Turkey, on the other hand, was trying to engage Damascus in finding a solution for Syria and the return of Syrian refugees, which had seen a surge in Turkey. This was evident in the several overtures made by the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to Assad. But the talks did not progress because of lack of trust. Assad believed that Erdogan was supporting the rebel factions, as also the fact that many Assad dissidents had found safe haven in Turkey. The end of Assad regime has prompted Turkey to open the Yayladagi border gate with Syria to manage the safe and voluntary return of the millions of Syrian migrants it hosts.
Suriye istikrara kavuştukça
Our calls to solve the Syria conflict through dialogue was arrogantly rejected by the old regime. The hand extended by our country was not appreciated and its meaning was not understood. Assad ran away, leaving behind a Syria where nearly 1 million people were massacred. 12 million people had to leave and many cities were turned to rubble.
bunun şimdiden emarelerini görmeye başladık.
In a strange play of geopolitics, while Turkey has supported certain factions, it has also cautioned against the People's Defense Units, the Syrian branch of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which is believed to have enjoyed the protection of Russia for a long time, and Daesh during this transition period.
We have to be watchful during this transition period. We are in communication with the groups to make sure that terrorist organizations, especially Daesh and PKK, is not taking advantage of the situation. Turkey is committed to continue fight against terrorism.
Russia, on the other hand, actively supported Iran and Lebanon-based militant group Hezbollah to save Assad during the 13-year civil war. As Russia faces global sanctions and is being treated as a pariah by the West and Europe, and with its own war raging in Ukraine entering the third year, Putin has to now salvage its strategic military bases in Syria, the naval facility at Tartus and the Khmeimim Air Base, even though reports suggest that Russian naval vessels have temporarily left the main port in Syria. What is to be seen now is if these key players will stand together against the West, particularly the US gaining ground in Syria, or will they remain opposed to each other, which could lead to further sectarian and factional strife, leading the entire region down a volatile path. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
There have been reports, intelligence plants, as also conspiracy theories revolving around Assad's fall. West Asia expert Rohan Gunaratne spoke to me some time ago, and here's a snippet from that interview where he breaks down these myths and explains what's really happening on the ground in Syria. Take a look. Rohan, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today Global. Let's begin with Assad's regime fall. How did that really happen? While many think it's sudden, it wasn't. What were the markers that led to Bashar al-Assad having to leave his country, flee his country, and now is sitting in Moscow?
Bashar al-Assad was a very powerful leader because he got more than 90% of the vote. But what happened was, during the Arab Spring, there was a huge protest against him. And some of the protesters and some of the protests were funded by the West. And Bashar al-Assad used extraordinary force against these protesters. And that strengthened the demonstrators, and they received funding, weapons, and support from neighboring and distant countries.
Right.
So gradually, this protest that was non-violent became a very violent protest. There was the formation of threat groups, And these groups eventually, with the assistance of other geopolitical actors, were able to overwhelm his security apparatus and seize power in Syria.
There has been news about India having denied visas to Khalistani sympathizers from Canada. It has outraged many in Canada, especially Khalistanis themselves. But the question we ask over here is that, is India not on the right side of its own law and order to ensure national security is paramount and that Khalistani sympathizers are not allowed into the country? Here's a report that we put out on why is it that India is rejecting Khalistanis' visas. Take a look. A group of Khalistani sympathizers have come out and said that they've been denied visa by India because of their position on the issue of Khalistan. Global News article paints India's visa policy as a form of coercion, claiming that the Indian government is weaponizing travel visas to silence its critics. The report claims that India is targeting Khalistani sympathizers in Canada, asking them to renounce their support for the Khalistani movement as a condition for receiving a visa. The issue? According to the article, if these individuals don't denounce the separatist movement and pledge allegiance to India's sovereignty, their chances of being granted a visa are next to none. Well, India is doing it for security reasons, as does Canada, when they conveniently reject visas of Indian nationals citing security reasons. Also, this isn't the first time Canada and its leadership have found themselves embroiled in controversy over Khalistani links. Back in 2018, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced global backlash when an alleged Sikh extremist was invited to an official dinner during Trudeau's state visit to India. Jaspal Atwal, a Canadian citizen of Indian origin, had been convicted and later acquitted of attempting to assassinate an Indian minister in 1986. He was also accused of being a member of a banned Sikh extremist group. Atwal was spotted in photographs with Trudeau's then-wife Sophie and one of his cabinet ministers during an event in Mumbai earlier that week. While Canadian authorities were quick to withdraw Atwal's invitation to the dinner, Trudeau stated that the invitation should never have been extended. Indian officials were equally alarmed, questioning how Atwal had been granted a visa to enter India in the first place. This incident added a diplomatic strain to Trudeau's visit and further highlighted Canada's lenient stance towards individuals associated with the Khalistani cause. Now fast forward to 2024. Canada is once again at odds with India over the Khalistani issue, but this time the debate revolves around visas. Is this reasonable policy enforcement? Or as critics like Global News imply, is it a violation of freedom of expression and political beliefs? First of all, let's look at the Khalistani movement itself. This is not a new issue. For decades, the movement has called for a separate state of Khalistan in India's Punjab. While the idea of an independent Sikh state has deep cultural and religious roots, the movement has been marred by violent acts and extremist ideologies. It has also had strong links with Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence or ISI, a group known for fostering destabilizing activities with India. Canada, with its large Sikh diaspora, has seen pro-Khalistani groups grow and become more vocal in recent years. The report suggests that India's visa policy is a form of coercion, accusing India of manipulating the travel documents of Khalistani supporters. It claims that individuals applying for Indian visas are being forced to denounce their support for Khalistan or face visa rejection. To be clear, this is not a simple sign a letter situation. Individuals like Bikramjit Singh Sandar, a prominent Khalistani leader and former president of the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurudwara in Canada's Surrey, have come forward detailing their experiences with Indian consular officials. Relations between India and Canada have been strained for years, particularly after the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Canadian Khalistani leader, in the year 2023. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused India of being involved in Nijjar's death, a claim that India categorically denied. The controversy over Niger's murder has deepened the rift between the two countries, with accusations and counter-accusations flying between the two governments. But the outcry over the visa issue, framed as a case of foreign interference, only adds fuel to the diplomatic fire. Ultimately, the issue boils down to this: should countries have the right to deny entry to individuals who pose a potential security threat or have a history of supporting violence? Or should foreign governments be expected to overlook such activities in the name of free movement? As this diplomatic spat between India and Canada continues to evolve, it's clear that the Khalistani issue is far from resolved. That's all in this edition of World Today. But before I go, here's some great news coming in from India. The youngest world chess champion is an Indian now, Gukesh Dammaraju. He won against Chinese Ding Liren, and these are emotional scenes that you see of Gukesh after having won the World Chess Championship. Goodbye and take care.